Welcome at Pizza and More. Everybody of you who was once in Naples should know this version of pizza which we make today. Because this version of pizza is really available on each corner as street food. I'm Jürgen and we make today the so-called Pizza Fritta. Yes, of course, this is really a pizza which is fried in hot oil. This kind of pizza is also set in the rule set of the AVPN, so the Associazione Verace Pizza Napoletana. So the Pizza Fritta is a real Neapolitan pizza, so a vera pizza napoletana. But where does this kind of pizza now come from? No, not the Americans founded it, and also no teenagers founded it. It was really founded from the nonnas and from the mamas from Naples after the war, because they really were very, very poor and they had not enough money to buy or to pay the wood which they would have needed for burning their ovens or for heating up their ovens for making normal pizza. And that was the reason why they thought, okay, let's heat up oil and let's fry the pizza in the hot oil. There are two different variations available. One is the calzone, which is a folded pizza, and the other one is a normal pizza as the shape of a disc. But okay, of course, it is not fried with the toppings, it's fried without the toppings, so only the base, and the toppings are put onto the pizza after frying the pizza. Normally, the Pizza Fritta is really taken out of the hot oil, it's folded into paper and eaten directly at the corner where you buy it. It's fantastic there. But of course we are not doing it. Well, if you want, when we remove it out of the hot oil, you also could fold it and eat it directly, but we will serve it on a plate. And normally the Pizza Fritta is made from direct dough with a hydration of 60% roundabout. We take today as well also 60% of hydration, but I decided to make a Poolish, so a pre-dough as a Poolish, because when we make Poolish, the dough afterwards gets a bit more elastic and a bit more stable, and I thought this maybe is then afterwards maybe a bit easier to fold the pizza, to close it and to fry it. And now I would say we start directly with the Poolish. As you might know, for the Poolish we need only a few ingredients. We need flour, water and yeast. The amount of flour and the amount of water is exactly the same for Poolish, so the Poolish itself has a hydration of 100%. The flour I use here is a flour with a high baking strength. It has around 13 or 14% of protein, W value over 300. This is required as the Poolish itself has a total leavening time. So the Poolish itself has a leavening time of 24 hours, but then if we make the main dough, the flour we are using right now in the Poolish will have in total a leavening time of 48 hours, and therefore I use a flour with a high baking strength. This is 250 grams water, have I said? No, this is 250 grams of flour. This is a type 00. You could also use a type 0 flour. And I have here only 0.05 grams of dry yeast. If you want to use fresh yeast, then please use 0.15 grams. Yes, of course, the amount of yeast is a very, very small amount of yeast, but as we let the Poolish raise at room temperature for 24 hours, this very small amount of yeast is absolutely enough. To create now our Poolish, we need a bowl. We pour all our water into the bowl, then directly followed from the flour and also the yeast. And then it's the easiest if we use a whisk and we mix up everything well. And then when everything is mixed up good, I use here a spatula and I clean the side of the bowl with the spatula. And then it's important to close the lid of this bowl. And now I let the Poolish raise at room temperature for 24 hours. The Poolish developed absolutely fantastic, and if you make the Poolish like I did now, I will show you my Poolish in a few seconds, then you will see that it's absolutely enough to use really this very small amount of yeast to get a nice Poolish. The reason is we had it raised at room temperature, and as soon, you need to know, yeast is nothing else like a mushroom. And as soon you have it there in your box together with the flour, so enough food and enough temperature, then all these mushroom cells, they get more and more and more and more. And that's the reason why it's really absolutely enough to have that really very small amount of yeast. I use now for the main dough a flour which has a medium baking strength, because the main dough itself has not that long leavening time like together from the Poolish. And the flour I use right now has 13% of protein and a W value of 290 to 310. And now we make the main dough. The ingredients for our main dough are our Poolish, and I hope you can see how many bubbles it has. Then as next we have here 250 grams of 00 flour. These are 50 grams of very cold water, and with this 50 grams it leads to a hydration of 60%. I have here then 15 grams of fine sea salt and 0.7 grams of dry yeast, and if you want fresh yeast then you use 2.1 grams. And for the main dough we put at first the whole amount of water into the bowl, and then we add directly our Poolish. And as soon we have the Poolish in the machine, we switch it on and mix the Poolish and the water a bit. And if this is done, we add now the whole amount of flour, but only if you are using a mixer. If you are kneading by hand, then add at first 1/3, mix it up together with the yeast, then add the second third, and then after around about 5 minutes add the last third, then together with the salt. But in the mixer, we added now the flour and the yeast, and then we mix everything up for around 5 minutes. And after around about 5 minutes kneading, we add the salt, and then we continue kneading until the window test works. After around 15 minutes of kneading time, I heard that sound of the dough. I think the dough is now ready. Normally, if you use Poolish or even also Biga, or if you do some autolysis, the kneading time shortens. And I think the dough is now ready. I covered already my hands with water because this helps a bit so that the dough doesn't stick so heavy to your hands. I take out a bit of dough, shape a ball, and then I stretch this dough. Of course, we have only 60% of hydration, and you might ask you why I use only 60% of hydration. This is pretty easy, because then it's easier to put the pizza into the hot oil if it's not that super weak and elastic. But however, you can see I have now 60% of hydration, and you see how fantastic it's possible to stretch this dough. It's really almost a window. I can look through it. The dough is perfectly ready. The gluten structure is built, and now I can take the dough out onto my counter. If we have the dough on the counter, it's now time to make several times stretch and fold to get a nice and proper ball. For this we take the dough from the left and from the right, put it back onto the counter, stretch it here and fold it over. And then we do this several times. This helps also again to prevent the dough from sticking, and it strengthens the gluten structure. Then we turn the dough ball several times. We push the dough ball. No, we pull the dough ball and again, and then we turn it again and we pull it again. And after doing this several times, we have a fantastic dough ball. Then we take a box or a container, we put it inside, and then we close the lid. Now we let it rise for around 2 hours at room temperature, and then we put the dough into the fridge for around 10 hours. Now after a leavening time of 10 hours in the fridge, I took the dough directly out of the fridge and we make now the dough balls with the cold dough. The dough balls will be far smaller than for normal pizza. We will have dough balls only with a weight of 160 grams. The reason is pretty simple, because we have to press the pizza, we have to close it, we have to stretch it when we put it into the hot oil, and then a normal sized pizza would be simply far too big. And now we make the dough balls. The dough is now here on my counter, and as I already said, I will make now 5 pieces with 160 grams each. When we then have 5 pieces which are almost identical, we take the first dough, and this nice side which was on top during the leavening time, we leave this on top because this helps us to strengthen the surface of the dough. And then we shape pizza balls like we are used to do it also with the pizza balls for the bigger pizzas. But even these pizza balls are far smaller, and you may know all the different versions which is possible to make the pizza balls. If you don't know how to make all these pizza balls or the different versions, please check out my other videos. And when the 5 balls are shaped, then we close again the lid, which is very important to protect our dough from drying out. And then we put the dough directly back into the fridge, and round about between 4 and 6 hours before baking, we take them out. It depends on the room temperature. So the higher the room temperature, the shorter is the time at room temperature at the end. And the colder it is, the longer they need to stay out in room temperature. The waiting again has its end, and we can start with making pizza. I already preheated a pan full of oil. The oil has around 170 degrees Celsius. It should not be too far colder, because if it's far colder, then the dough gets too fat. If it's too hot, then the dough gets brown too quick and the cheese inside will not melt. So therefore, round about 170, 175 degrees is an ideal temperature. Then I have prepared ricotta cheese. The ricotta cheese, 1 pot of ricotta cheese, I added to this cheese round about 3 tablespoons full of water, so that simply the ricotta is a bit more creamy. Then I have fresh grated Parmesan cheese, basilicum, basil. So I have also tomato sauce. The tomato sauce does not, we don't put the tomato sauce inside of the pizza. No, this is then put on the pizza after it's fried. The tomato sauce I made is the same tomato sauce like every time. In the video description you will find the link to this tomato sauce. This is a normal Neapolitan tomato sauce with San Marzano tomatoes and 4 grams of fine sea salt to 1 can of tomatoes. Of course I have mozzarella fior di latte, and I have small cutted salami. You also could use some ham or whatever you want inside of the pizza. And now I think I will show you, and we make together the pizza. We take this dough out in the same way like we are used to do it with normal pizza. Now I have the pizza or the dough on my counter, and now it's important to start pressing from the crust towards the center. And it's important to let the center a bit more, to let in the center a bit more dough, because at the end when we fold it over, then we need in the center a bit more dough. Otherwise it will break, because in the center there are the ingredients. That's it, we shouldn't make it bigger. Then the first, we add here in the center some ricotta cheese. Then some parmesan, fresh grated. Then the mozzarella fior di latte. Some salami. Pepper. And a bit fresh basil. And then we close this pizza. Therefore we take it here and then we fold it over. And then it's important to really close the edges very well, because otherwise there is the danger that the ingredients go out into our pan and then we have all the ingredients in our pan, which is not that nice. Then we take it at this side like a bag, so that all the ingredients go back here to the center, and then we take it here on these edges and we put it into the pan. Then we wait a bit and then we let it into the hot oil. And now it's important always to put hot oil on top of the pizza. And here you can directly see it's good that our pizza is not bigger. And then it's important to turn it when the first side is nice and golden, and then to continue putting the hot oil over the pizza. And when also the second side is nice and golden, we take it out of the pan and put it onto such a paper. And on top of our nice pizza fritta, we put some tomato sauce. And also some fresh basil. And now I think I will cut into it. And here you can have a look how fantastic it looks like. And then I can have the first bite into it. And I can promise you this tastes so fantastic. It tastes totally different as a normal pizza, but it's really amazing. If you like my video, it would be fantastic if you would subscribe my channel. Then see us also in the next video. Ciao.